like to call this meeting to order. First, I'd like to announce that this meeting is being recorded and ask if there's anyone in the audience who is also recording this meeting. Hearing none, if we could rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So the first item on our agenda should be, because we're meeting early at 6:30, the wind turbine report presentation. Could I have a motion, please?
Motion to move up item 4A, wind turbine report presentation.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, so voted. Good evening. Mr. Burney, if you want to make your introductions.
Good evening. As you know, we're here for the wind turbine presentation. I appreciate you guys starting early to accommodate this. This is Matt Vanderbrook from Sustainable Energy Developments. They are the consultant that the town, through the Clean Energy Center of Massachusetts, hired to do the feasibility report, and he'll be giving you a quick rundown of what the final report looks like.
Thanks, Adam. Thanks for having me in. It's been a long road to get here. We've had lots of time to work on this study, so we're happy to finally be here. Special thanks to the members of the Alternative Energy Committee for pushing this along and being great to work with through this process. So, it's a pretty long presentation. I provided copies to the board, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on each slide, and hopefully we'll get to some questions at the end. As Adam mentioned, we were hired 2.5 years ago now to determine the viability of a wind turbine project in the town of Auburn. The general conclusion was that yes, a wind turbine is viable at this proposed location on Prospect Hill. And just the background was the town went to the Commonwealth Wind Center that was at the time based out of UMass, and basically looked at some properties around the town and determined that that was the most optimal location based on wind resource and setbacks from homes. So that was the location that we focused our attention on. And we installed a Met tower there in August of 2011, and it's still up there collecting very valuable wind data that can be used going forward. So we'll jump right into it. This first image, that is an image of the wind turbine from Eddy Pond. There's another one in there. That's a photo simulation. We do that based on our WindPro modeling. It's also using the Met Tower location as sort of a representative location to show where the wind turbine is. So an overview of the project. The average wind speed at 65 meters is 5.95 meters per second. That's about 14 miles per hour. That's right about where it was originally predicted it would be. The wind turbine that we recommend, and we'll get into this, is a Gamesa 850 kilowatt wind turbine. This is a wind turbine closer to stature of the one at Holy Name, so not a very large scale wind turbine like some of the other ones you've seen. This is similar to Holy Name or Mass Maritime Academy. Energy production is about 1.7 million kilowatt hours a year. Again, this is based on over a year's worth of wind resource data collected at the site. And then some of these other details are, kind of in flux a lot of the time. The electricity value is based on the National Grid G1 rate, which is what the value of the electricity would be at, and it's about 13 cents at this point, but it's constantly going up and down based on the market. And then the 20-year savings we were looking at in a bonded scenario, which was one of the scenarios that was recommended that we look at, we would see savings revenues of about $2.1 million, with the wind turbine project cost estimated at $2.9 million. And that's based on what we've done in the past, prices of wind turbines that we work with. We did get some estimates on road costs as well from a couple contractors to help verify some of those costs. So the wind turbine, again, we recommend, this is based on, the location it was located. We just felt that this was sort of the best size to fit in that location based on where it was, based on access, on a couple other reasons. This is a wind turbine that we've recently installed near our office. It is one of the most installed wind turbines in the world, which is why we use it. It's very proven. Gamesa is one of the leading wind turbine manufacturers in the world. They provide a lot of support. People have had some issues in the past with other wind turbine manufacturers that have gone out of business, aren't able to cover their warranty, which is why we recommend using these types of manufacturers. Gamesa, GE, Vestas are, they're going to be around for a long time, so that's why we recommend using them. And then this is just a financial summary through the bond issuance. We ran it at 2.5%. That was a couple months ago. That was a rate that was suggested to us. Things change. We know the market's constantly evolving. So at that 2.5% rate, if the town of Auburn took out a bond to develop the entire project, you'd be looking at annual savings in year one around $225,000. That doesn't take into account the operational costs. So the net of that is about $65,000 in year one. This chart just sort of shows the increase, assuming about a 2 to 3% increase in electricity rates, which is about the average that we've seen in Massachusetts. It's actually been a little higher over the 10-year period, but 2 to 3% is, pretty average. The siting, again, we wanted to pick a location. This is the red outline shows the properties held by the town of Auburn. Some of those properties to the south are held in perpetuity, so they couldn't develop anything there. So we stuck to this area. It's very close to where it doesn't show the clearing that was done for the Met Tower in this photo, but we're sort of right on the edge of that cleared area for the wind turbine. Again, selected to be a good distance away from residences based on the size of the wind turbine, and we just feel that's an appropriate wind turbine size for that location based on the residential area. It's been mentioned before, could you put in a larger turbine? Potentially. One of the things that we're recommending the town goes forward with, and Adam's working on, and it's fully funded by the state, is to perform an acoustic study where they'll actually measure the ambient sound levels in the area, and that'll just help determine really what the sound is there, taking into account I-395 being right there, and that's just a useful tool in siting. But currently at this point we still recommend this 850 kilowatt wind turbine as the most appropriate technology at that site. Again, Met Tower was up. It's still collecting data, which is always good to have. The more data you have, the better. We'll probably be taking that down in the fall. It will also be used during the acoustic study to just provide some additional verification there as well. So we're going to keep it up through that study. And this is just a good tool. This is a wind resource grid that is color-coded and sort of shows what areas are the windiest. And in this area, the Prospect Hill is probably one of the windiest locations in the immediate area, which is, as we expected, but just sort of reaffirms that this is a good location. So some of the studies that we do to, again, assess the impacts of a potential wind turbine to the surrounding area. One of them is a shadow flicker study. This is using our WindPro modeling software. This is a worst case scenario or ideal conditions. So this model doesn't take into account days when it's cloudy. It doesn't take into account tree cover elevation. This is assuming a completely flat land with no trees. And so based on that, there were 3 locations on this map, SR7, 28, and 30, what we call receptors, that would experience over 30 hours of shadow per year, which doesn't seem like a lot, but that's sort of a standard, an industry standard, where they've said if it's over this, it requires some additional investigation. I'll talk about this a little bit, but we're moving into a business planning phase, which is part of the original CEC contract that kind of helps refine some of the information that we've done, that we've discovered. And we'll be, in that phase, we'll do a more realistic shadow flicker assessment, which takes into account the weather conditions, tree cover, those types of things as well. Again, the sound propagation, again, this is similar to the shadow flicker. It's a very sort of basic analysis to determine what the sound levels would be from the wind turbine, but this does not take into account the existing sound levels in the area, and that's why we recommend the acoustic study. So this just says, if there was no other sounds in the area, this is how much the wind turbine would emit. So within a very close area, that red area is 55 decibels from the wind turbine, and that's sort of the reference point for that is somewhere around a dishwasher in the next room. Just to give you an idea. But again, it's very important also to meet DEP standards to understand what the actual ambient sound levels are in the entire area, which is something that will be taking place here shortly. Some of the technical details, again, we haven't found any sort of major issues with the site from a technical standpoint. Interconnection is pretty straightforward. We'd be stepping up the power emitted from the wind turbine, be an underground wire run along the access road that was built for the Met Tower, and that would be interconnected onto the main road there. Just because of the capacity of those lines, we don't anticipate there's going to be any major interconnection upgrades recommended by the utility. There's lots of stuff going on down there by the Home Depot and BJ's. So again, no major issues with that process. And this is a development plan based on sort of the site conditions. There's 2 wetland areas located there, so we want to make sure we avoid those. And we just followed the yellow path is along the existing access road. So there would be some clearing potentially needed just along the edge of the currently cleared area, but nothing major. That was just sort of, we thought that would be a little better location based on some of the findings that we've had so far. This is sort of, might be too much detail. A question was asked to us about, well, what kind of road is going to be necessary to get the equipment up there, what kind of crane. We just use sort of a standard rubber tire crane to basically assemble the wind turbine up there. No major issues. We did get an estimate for the road cost. So again, nothing that's technically infeasible for this project. It should be pretty straightforward. Again, foundation, a spread footing foundation, which is standard in the industry. It's possible that some ledge could be encountered, which would increase costs. So one of the first things, if and when this project proceeded, would be to do a geotechnical boring to see where that ledge is located, because that could add some costs to the overall project. Public outreach, this is part of that process. It's very important to, give everyone all the information that's available out there. And so that's why some of the things that we're recommending in this next phase of business planning is around that. One is the acoustic study. One is this real-world shadow flicker assessment. The other will be a balloon float, where we would actually float one of our balloons. We have a very large, essentially looks like a blimp, and we float it at the hub height of the wind turbine, and then there's another one on top of that that goes to the tip height of the turbine. So basically what we would do is have that up for 3, 4, 5 hours, however long was necessary, and then the town would just sort of put this information out to the public so everyone would be able to go and see how it would actually look. And then we would also use that to sort of refine some of the shadow flicker images that we did. So the segue to that is the visual simulation. We picked some locations where we could see the Met Tower. That's just a useful tool to be able to accurately model the wind turbine. So these are just some images there. Again, you saw the one from Eddy Pond. This is a simulation from Kelly Street. So that's probably the closest location that we took of the wind turbine. This is from Barnes Street, which is a little further away. The turbine's a little tough to see. It's right sort of on the edge of where those branches and leaves stick up, just to the left of those. And those are just, again, those are tools to use, but like we mentioned, floating a balloon for a pretty long period of time is definitely recommended and definitely a helpful tool to inform the public on this project. Permits and approvals, no major issues at the state and federal level. We got a determination of no hazard from the FAA, which was expected. There's some fish and wildlife notifications, but typically with single turbine projects, they just want to be notified. Some stormwater pollution prevention, all pretty standard stuff with construction. And then local, there isn't currently a bylaw for wind in the town, so we recommend going through a special permit process working with Conservation Commission, all that. So again, no major issues on the permitting side of things. And this is probably one of the most interesting things is knowing, how much is this actually going to cost? Again, we're going off of what we've experienced in the past. We recently installed one of these wind turbines at our office, so we have a pretty good handle on a lot of this information. Again, every site is different. As a public project, this is going to have to go through some form of procurement. So, we can't be 100% on what all those costs are going to be. We do know how much wind turbines cost. But how much all this other stuff is going to cost is variable. But this is sort of our best estimation on the information that we have and some of the conversations that we've had with other contractors in the area. And then the long-term operation of the turbine is of course vital. The worst thing that can happen is to be left with a wind turbine or any technology that is not supported. So basically how we work with our projects, and if the town goes some other route, if they proceed with a different manufacturer, this is the type of stuff that you want. You want some accountability. You want the manufacturer to be monitoring the turbine 24/7 and have a 24-hour response team to come and maintain the turbine and make sure there's no major issues and get a nice long warranty that covers parts, labor, crane costs, all that sort of stuff. And that's stuff that we can, we've helped other clients of ours and towns in the past to negotiate those agreements so that they're most beneficial to the communities that are going forward with these projects. Just to go through these next few ones, net metered electricity value. Basically, because you're not interconnecting behind an existing facility, there's a set rate. It's a G1 rate. It was 13 cents in the springtime. It's probably 12 cents now, but as you can see, it's very variable. We start to expect rates to go back up again, starting to already see it this summer. And as I discussed, the most beneficial financial structure is a municipal bond. Always with these projects, owning it yourself is the best way to do it. It is sort of the more upfront capital is involved, so there's some degree of risk. There are third-party options as well. Again, not quite as beneficial as owning it yourself, but removing or limiting some of the risk up front to finance these types of projects. And so that's it. Our next steps is to submit an application for the acoustic study, which should be done shortly. So the goal would be to have that study taking place this fall and have the report done very shortly thereafter. Get into the business planning phase, which will involve the balloon float, which I would hope that we can do this fall as well. And then after that phase, it's up to the town to decide, what to do, whether to proceed with a project. The Mass CC, who funded this originally, does have a new funding program announced last month. Pretty much the same amounts as it's been in the past, but for design and construction funding as well, which we've used on quite a few projects, including Holy Name. So that's it, and I'll take questions.
Before we take questions, Mr. Burney, did you have anything to add? Mr. Chairman, did you have anything to add to the presentation before we take questions?
May have some citizens' comments.
Okay, but regarding this project, you had nothing you wanted to add for the board? We'll absolutely we'll take citizens' comments after the board asks questions. I didn't know if you had, as chairman, had anything that you wanted the board to consider.
I bulleted a few items. Bob Plachukas, 231 Millbury Street. I think that one of the nicest things is we're not here asking you to fund something that's needed, like a school or a trash collection or anything like that. We're here offering you a chance to save the taxpayers some money. We're also here, and I haven't heard anything said about this, but this is typically old New England ingenuity in creating something from nothing. We are creating wealth here for the town, something that America hasn't been doing a lot of. We've been exporting it. including to our banks are owned by other countries. Some of the electric companies are on the stock exchange in England. But here we have wealth, a precious commodity. We have air there. We have ledge there. We have a lot of wetlands there. It would have been a nightmare to put a high school there. And it also, I think, if the residents think of some of the other uses that have been proposed for that site, one was a casino, one was a high school, one was town wells. I mean, all have huge impacts that this one doesn't have. So I think if we're going to be good examples, and I see a wind turbine as the symbol of energy independence for America, creating wealth from nothing, which is something we haven't been doing. And that, if you throw a pebble in a pond, it spreads out. If we spend that money overseas, it's going to help the economies of Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and other countries. This helps us right here in Auburn. In 8 or 10 years from now, you may not have $600,000 in new growth. You may need this money desperately. He mentioned the tried and true technology. We're being good stewards of our environment. We're being a good example. Ask your grandchildren the question, what are they going to say? What did my parents do to stop acid rain and the changing of the environment? What movement did we do? What efforts did we make? This is completely green, and it's special. And I believe, just as in the stock market, I believe in spiders, where you don't put all your eggs in one basket. Don't put all of your eggs in one basket in natural gas or solar or anything. We already know what has happened to a lot of products that came from other countries. Go into the southern part of our country and look at the hundreds of houses that had to tear the drywall down because it had poisons in it manufactured in China. Look at the jewelry they sent over to us with lead in it that our kids put in their mouths. We never know what the future will bring. And because of that, I'm not saying that these things are polluted, but there may be a problem with some of this technology that we don't foresee right now. But 6, 7 years from now, we may. I think you have to keep this in perspective, too. We read in the news, I know the Boston Globe just had a huge article on wind turbine farms having problems. You got to take it into perspective. There is over 700,000 wind turbines in the world. If you had that many cars, you would have an awful lot of recalls. Because I had a few recalls in my Prius, doesn't mean I don't like my Prius. Anytime you manufacture that many items, there are going to be some issues in construction and with certain companies, and some companies going out of business. So I think we have to put it in that perspective. I like the idea of saving the taxpayers over $2 million in the future. Again, we're not asking you for money. Let's save some taxes. Let's save some money. I want to thank you for listening, and of course, I hope we go through it. I started this 10 years ago, and I've sort of backed off because it's now in the hands more of the town than it is of individuals. So you are the people who are going to make decisions, and I say again, what will your grandchildren say? What little part did I play in helping the future in saving energy? Thank you.
Thank you. So next, I'm going to open it up to board questions for Mr. Vanderbroek. Do members have questions? Mr. Simone and Mr. Vanderbroek, we have questions now.
I have a few, but I'm sure other people do too, so I don't know if you want to...
Go ahead.
All
That's
right.
fine.
Hopefully this doesn't jump around too much. I tried to go in the order of the presentation, but then a couple other things. So you listed the year one revenue at about 65,000.
Yes.
And I don't think it was mentioned, but what is the year-over-year potential revenue or savings that could be?
Sure, we had it in there at 2 million. Again, in the study, there's a lot of sensitivities that are based on, how much energy is going to escalate, based on bond rates. I mean, there's lots of sort of variables in there, but sort of our baseline was about $2 million at about a 2.5% increase in energy rates.
All right, so that point that you made, the $2 million over 20 years, which I'm assuming would be the life of the bond?
Correct, yep, that's what we're assuming.
And this is where I need more information, because I think the cost number was,
Just under 3 million.
yeah, 2.9.
2.9.
And I have two questions associated with that, and hopefully I can find, on the chart where you had the cost, there was an additional, I think, like $150,000 that had labor costs and other things. Is that part of the 2.9?
Yes,
Okay.
that's all, everything's included in that cost, all the
All right, that's
operational
fine.
costs.
So it seems like there's, over that 20-year period, it seems like at the end of 20 years, we've spent 2.9 for the construction. And then on top of that, we have maintenance, whether it's, you know, some sort of contract or whatever it is. That's a year-over-year cost, I'm assuming. So, and we have potential to save 2 million over 20 years. So at the end of 20 years, it seems to me we're 900,000 possibly in the hole.
Yeah, sorry,
So explain that.
it's a net, sorry. It's
All right.
so it's, basically, we've put out a bond for 20 years on a $2.9 million project. So that $2 million is after all those, so you've paid off your bond, you've paid all your operational costs, that's after all of those costs have been paid. Everything, so yeah, so it's after that. So it's a
Okay.
$2 million net over 20 years for that project.
All right, we're good. All right, operational wise, and you touched on this a little, so I have a question. Because I worked in that industry for a while, when I worked at a gas turbine plant, we were basically controlled by National Grid. They told us when to fire up the plant, when we were actually putting energy on
Sure.
the grid and all of that. And I'm just wondering if it's a similar situation. Do they have the ultimate say over whether it's operating or not, or is that up to the town? How does that whole operational piece?
It's basically been set up by DPU. Basically, they're required to accept your electricity, essentially.
Okay.
Because it's a net metered project, so under a 2 megawatt system. So basically, they're required to accept all that electricity. There's not really much they could do to tell you that you couldn't. I mean, if the power goes out, the turbine does trip, and it doesn't, if the power goes out, it stops.
Okay.
It puts the brakes on, it doesn't work because it's protecting their line guys. But yeah, basically DPU requires them to accept that electricity, based, per net metering rules.
So other than the scenario you just described with lost power, it can pretty much be run anytime we want.
Yes, correct.
All right. Okay. Just a couple more. The slide that touched on the shadow flicker.
Yes.
If you said it, I apologize. I think I may have missed. But what is the concern with that, and why do we have to do a study on that?
Yeah, it's basically the wind turbine blade passes in front of the sun, and it casts a shadow. And so if the wind turbines, it spins, it's like 50 RPMs or something. So the blade's going to be passing in front of the sun and causing a shadow, which it can be an annoyance. So that's the concern there.
So it's not an impact type of thing. Like there's no environmental impact or anything of that.
No,
it's
no.
Just a
Yes.
Okay.
No environmental impact
All right.
from that. No.
And then you talked about the interconnection review
Yes.
being done, and it seems like that's something that has to be okayed after some sort of study. Is that something that could put a stop to the project if it's not?
It is, yes. That is definitely something. Again, from everything we've reviewed and everything we've seen, we don't think it's an issue. It's an issue in more rural areas, where there's, not a lot of loads being serviced or the lines haven't been upgraded. So it's less of a concern here, but it's always a risk. The utilities have been sometimes slow to respond on this stuff, but they're kind of getting, held to the fire. Their feet are getting held to the fire a little more based on some new rules that have been passed and that they have to meet certain timelines. But that is sort of an ongoing risk potentially. It is interconnection, and that's with any renewable energy project. The interconnection is always can be risky.
And at what point? Because you talked about the potential additional cost for after a geological survey is done. If there's ledge, at what point is that done to?
That would be, if you were proceeding, that would be one of the first things done. One of the good things is that the CEC, especially for towns, has been great about sort of putting a lot of the money up front so that the town isn't at a lot of risk for this stuff. So if potentially it comes out that there's some major issue, it would be known pretty early on and can be addressed.
All right, last two. What is the projected lifespan of this turbine that's being recommended?
It's 20 years. That's sort of our standard. It could be potentially longer. The gearboxes, we build in a reserve fund to pay for this in that model. The gearbox is likely to go in somewhere between year 10 and 12 or 14. So it's important to sort of build that cost in there to replace that. Just because it is a significant component. But in general, the rest of it's good for 20 years. And then at that point, they can be repowered. The tower is still good. The foundation is still good. So it's, potentially not as expensive to, put new blades or new housing up there for some newer, newer technology. So it could potentially be extended for longer than that. But we don't go that far into it.
And last question, just what's the typical construction time to get this up and running once it starts?
That's the shortest part of the process. It's probably 3 to 4 months. And with this site, there's already an access road. Putting in the foundation and all the electrical infrastructure is a month and a half. Putting up the actual wind turbine takes 5 days. So it's not a very long process. It's just sort of the development process is pretty significant.
All right, thanks. I appreciate your answers and your patience.
Yeah, thanks.
Anyone else? Mr. Holstrom next.
Through the chair, you were talking about doing several studies. We're talking about the shadow, also the sound.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've got some documentation here in front of me. Several other towns across the state have put the windmills up.
Yep.
And now the sounds of 40 to 45, you're talking about 40 to 45 decibels from a wind turbine, they've been exceeded.
Mm-hmm.
How do you go to correct that? Is it going to be a 24/7 operation? What kind of regulations are we working with? And the permitting process, who does the permitting and how is that permitting going to be developed? I don't know, just by quick review, I don't think we have any bylaws or if we have any way of the town looking at a permitting package to put up something similar to this. We've never experienced anything like
Sure.
this before. So those are some of the questions I would ask because it's going to affect the neighbors.
Sure.
Even with a low ceiling. You may have a 40 to 45 decibel limit on a great day, but then when the ceiling gets low, now that sound gets closer to the ground and it could be more of an annoyance. Some of these towns, they want to get rid of those windmills since they put them up. So I guess I'm asking you a question. How do we regulate that? How do we control that so that once we put it up and we run into a problem, how do we correct it?
Sure. And really the only permitting requirement is at the state level through the DEP. You can't exceed 10 decibels over whatever the ambient sound is. So that's one of the reasons we do the study. As for the other projects, we weren't really involved in any of those, our company, but we, understand all the concerns with them. That's one of the reasons we recommended the turbine that we did. All those projects are sort of your megawatt scale wind turbines, 1.5 megawatts to 2 megawatts, and they're much larger machines. So, we usually recommend a little more stringent setbacks for those. Again, that's why we recommend a medium, sort of a medium scale wind turbine of this size. As to, addressing those issues as they come up, I mean, our whole goal of picking this turbine in this location is so that those issues don't come up. But, based on what other people have done, I mean, you can, shut them down at certain times. That's not anything we recommend, but it's something that, you can program it into these turbines. They're very, high-tech technology, so it's pretty easy to do that sort of stuff. But again, that's lost revenue, and it's, if that's going to be a major concern, then it's going to impact the overall viability of the project. So.
Through the chair, sounds like a significant project, and with what you've given us tonight, I'd be interested to sit down and just kind of look at this and compare it against some of the other information I've received. But I think for the board and for the record, instead of this board here deciding on that, I would rather send it to the voters for a decision process there. But thank you for your presentation tonight. And again, we'll take a look at what we have in front of us. That way we might be able to come back and ask some further questions on that.
Yeah, and please, as questions come up, we're happy to provide more information. So just don't hesitate.
Thank you.
So I have a couple questions also. We had allowed 45 minutes for this presentation. I am going to open it up to questions from the public, but I'm going to ask you to keep it brief, and I will also keep my questions brief. On the page marked wind turbine setting page, you have the closest residence to the proposed location marked at 1,200 feet. If you have that information, and if not, if you could get it for me. How many homes are sited, say, within like 1,201 feet to 1,400 feet? I don't think that just designating one home within that area is adequate. So I would want a better diagram of
Sure.
where the homes are, with, say, even like 1,500 feet out.
Yeah, we have that information. It's not completely spelled out, so I'm happy to do that.
Okay, and this is just, I guess, just a brief comment. It's just incredible that you can have a $3 million wind turbine that doesn't come with a warranty, and we're paying $22,000 for a warranty in years 1 and 2. It just, one would think that a $3 million, it's like my washer today, like, it should come with a warranty, but everyone wants to sell you the extra warranty. A $3 million piece of equipment should have a warranty.
It do come, and that maybe that's not clear in there. It does come with all wind turbines come with a 2-year standard warranty. Those costs might be associated with the sort of O&M costs. That's a sort of a separate service package, but if something goes wrong with the wind turbine, they cover parts and labor and warranty. But like a wind turbine requires annual maintenance, just like a car. So it's just sort of changing the oil, checking the components. So that's what that cost would be.
I still think it should be included in the cost, but having said that, I'll move
Okay.
on. I wrote notes as I saw how close, 1,200 feet. You mentioned the sound, and that it would be like having a dishwasher in the next room. So I know a dishwasher can drive you crazy in the next room if it goes too long. So how long would this sound? Is it constant? Is it on and off?
Again, that it would be a constant sound potentially. And again, this is why we recommend doing the acoustic study, so we actually know what it's not sort of in a vacuum. There's other sounds that occur, and so it's good to compare those and how they coexist, I guess.
Okay, but that's what's allowed, is that level in comparison to a dishwasher in the next?
It can't exceed, all the law says is it can't exceed 10 decibels
Right.
over whatever ambient is. And ambient could be very low, and then that would be a concern.
Okay. So on your foundation page, there's an additional cost for the geotechnical study, without any indication what potentially could be what could be the high end and the low end of that cost?
Of the study itself?
The geotechnical study that's necessary during the design.
If you go in the actual report, there's sort of a breakdown of those types of costs. And so the geotechnical, again, it depends, getting a quote from the actual geotechnical firm, it can go from between 10, in some cases it can be $20,000. So
But that cost is not included, correct? Because you said it would be an additional cost?
it's included in the overall cost that we've provided in there.
Okay, and I guess my last question or request for information would be on, I believe, with this being fairly new, there's some data on the effects of the flicker on homeowners?
Yes.
Medical statistics.
Oh, medical statistics. There's plenty of reports
Okay.
out on that type of stuff. So.
Yeah, certainly that would be helpful as
Okay.
well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Are there any public comments, questions? If you could come up and give your name for the record, please, Mr. Ethia.
Good evening, my name's Ken Ethier, I live at 404 Leicester Street. I first would like to thank this committee for all the work they've done over the 9 or 10 years to put this project together. I'm very much impressed with somebody who would volunteer that much time. I think they've done an excellent job. I'm also impressed with the site that was picked. As you all know, I think that my hobby is town history. And if you were to look back in colonial times, there was actually a wind-powered grist mill very, very close to the site that this turbine is proposed on, and it was the only one in town. The other thing that I would like to make mention of is that when you got around 1890 or 1880, before we had electricity in the houses, many, many houses had windmills right at their house. This is how they would get water pressure, so you could have running water in the house. There were also attachments to saw wood and do other things, so they were very common. If you looked in the old tax record, they were assessed at $50, and that's the only real record of it, but there were an awful lot of them around town. So wind power isn't anything that's really new to the town. The other thing I would like to make mention of is that I go on walks very early in the morning. I live on Leicester Street, which is probably as rural as any place in town. I'll leave at around 6:20. There isn't a whole bunch going on in town then. The sounds that are around town would be the CSX Railroad. It's the longest grade in New England. It's a 7-mile grade from the Worcester line in Jamesville to Charlton. And sometimes there's 4 engines pulling freight cars up that line. Now that's been in since 1839, and I live close to it. I don't even hear it. You probably could hear it any place in town. And the other line that goes through town would be the line that the old Worcester to Norwich line. And that line, they never eliminated the grade crossing. So the train has to beep the horn. I think there's 7 different places where they cross the road. I can't imagine this wind tower making any noise that would be comparable to these two things. All the highways we have in town, you can hear the turnpike from, at that time in the morning, and can hear it from pretty much any place in town. And we've got Route 20, we've got all these highways that these trucks make a lot of noise. So I can't really understand what the noise part of it is. We don't have a quiet town. And somebody thought that the wind tower would be not nice to look at. My own personal feelings, I don't think there's anything more ugly than that cell tower up on Route 20. And nobody, I don't know, nobody made a big deal about that. That's terrible looking, I think. And it's close to pretty much any place you go around town, you can see the thing. So I'm a little bit confused. I'm for the tower. I'd like to see the town save money. I guess that's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Ethier. In the back, Mr. Ringard.
Thank you, Rick Ringard, 288 South Street. There are a whole lot of things that come into play here besides what's in this report. And all you need to do is look at the other towns that have put these things up. Falmouth, Fairhaven, Situate, Kingston, Princeton. Everybody's had problems that have put them up. And I'm not saying they're not insurmountable, but I'm saying that we need to be looking at them. And I was in here maybe a month ago and asked you if you would consider doing a peer review, and I think it would be the wisest thing that you could do. And the main reason is that we've hired, and nothing against these people, they have a great reputation, but we've hired a developer to do a feasibility study. When you do that, you're going to get what they sell. These people are dealers of this particular turbine. We need to have someone else take a look at it. I think the Energy Committee is going to have Eddie Kasanovich look at the financial end of it, which they should. Doing a peer review would be doing the exact same thing, only on the technical end of what they proposed. They would look at, is the wind what they thought it was? Are there other models that would work better? Many, many things. And it may turn out that that the peer review says they did a great job, and great, we have an easier time getting money to develop this thing. But before we spend another $200,000 to do the design, you should seriously consider doing a peer review. The other thing, I really didn't intend to go into a lot of different things, and I know you're pressed for time, but to answer Mr. Simonian's question, how these things work, when a gas or an oil-fired turbine is running and the wind is also running, the turbines are slowed down and idle so that they can, because they have to take in the power from the wind turbine. As soon as the wind stops, then they turn the turbines back on. They turn the oil or the diesel or natural gas, whatever it is, turn it back on. So many times when the wind is feeding back in, these things, these fossil fuel units, are just sitting there idling. So the carbon emissions that these things purport to save, when you really look into it, there are a lot of questions if they actually save anything. So there are many, many things to look at here, and I hope that we do. The other thing is when we're talking of saving $2 million over 10 years, over 20 years, I'm sorry, that's not a lot of money. It also doesn't take into account the value of the houses, particularly on that hill, but in other places in town, what the value of the houses it doesn't take into effect what the property values of that area. And I just want to read you, and I won't take any more of your time, but I want to read you a comment from a real estate agent in Falmouth. And they deal with this. They've been dealing with it off and on. They've been to town meetings to try to take these things down. Here's a comment. In my opinion, it had a noticeably chilling effect, and it has definitely become more difficult to sell houses there. And the reason is, if people have choices, which they do, why are they going to buy in a place where the value has gone down or it's unclear what will happen in the future? So if we're going to say that we're going to save $2 million, let's take into effect what we're going to lose in tax value and what the people that own those houses are going to lose in values of their houses. If somebody loses $20,000 or $30,000 in the value of their house, the mere fact that we're getting some savings on our electricity means nothing. And if we lose tax income because of that, that washes off against the savings for the electricity. So thank you very much. I know this is going to be, I hope this is going to be a long process, and I hope we'll look at everything, not just the report from a developer. And again, it's, I mean, no ill will towards the people that did this report. They're developers. Thanks.
So since you mentioned it, Mr. Ringott, I don't know if you know the answer to this. Do you know do you have any information on the approximate cost of a peer review?
I don't.
Okay, we can research that. Thank you. Thank you.
I'd be happy to try to find some people that would do it.
No, I just didn't know if you had that information. Okay, thank you. Next, if you could come up to the microphone, please.
Clifford
evening.
Granger, 91 Prospect Street. I'm here more or less to say that I approve of the windmill, but I'd also like to say that I have ideas that might help. I have been in an area in Maine hunting where they had established 18 wind towers. And I had the opportunity to sit on the base of one and eat my lunch one day. And I heard no noise. I heard a little swish, maybe, noise from the wind when it was at the blade was at the lowest point. And I cannot see where it will do any harm to Prospect Hill. I've hunted that area for years. I knew the area before they put in the wind towers, and I've been back there since they put the wind towers in. At the time they put in 18 was one thing, but they put in more. I think there's around 30 there now. And it's not on top of the mountains, it's on the sides of the mountains where they've flattened out areas. And they use the wind going through the channels between the mountains rather than over the top of the mountain. So I can't see where it'd do any harm. I grew up on a farm. My father had a poultry farm. My grandparents had a dairy farm. and they had a windmill which pumped water, and that always amused me. And it was a long time before they went to electricity to pump the water. And I never heard much noise even from the old tin windmill. And I don't believe there's much noise from the towers up there in Maine. I've sat under them and eaten my lunch, and we talked as we would amongst ourselves at any time. So I see no reason why there would be any noise. There may be a little swishing noise at times, and that may be due to the increased wind. But the turbines turn at a limited speed and don't create a noise like a propeller would on an airplane. So that is about the size of it, and as I say, I would definitely say there was advantages in having a windmill. We had it on the farm and it worked, and I was known as the hick, but I don't care.
Thank you, Mr. Granger. Is Mr. Platukis? We'll finish up at 7:30.
I want to thank SED for mentioning Flickr, and the committee has looked at Flickr quite a bit, but a couple of big things have been left out. Flickr has to be perfect. Let's assume you had a mirror. Correct me if I'm wrong. If I had a mirror and you had a light, and you wanted to flash that light in someone's eyes off the mirror, you'd have to have the perfect angle to do that. Not 12 angles, one angle. If the turbine finds that it needs to turn, get better wind? When it turns, and how often does it turn?
The prevailing direction, it's mainly going to be facing west, but I mean, it's constantly turning based on whatever the wind speed is.
You lost that 1 degree of angle. That gets rid of the flicker in that, under the ideal circumstances itself. Does it tilt at all?
No, just rotate.
Okay. So now, if we have shade, if we have clouds, you don't have it. If you have trees, you don't have it. Is it the back of your house or the front of your house? I'll bet it's going to be the back of a house. And how many days of the year? It's very few. And it can be mitigated. Mr. Bernie said they mitigate things all the time in the planning board. They use trees. They use other things. You can put a canopy over a back window if it's one window. If it's not my picture window, to me it's not as big a deal. But if I lived in Falmouth, I would be against that project. I would have been against it the first day. I spent my summers in Lake Singletary. You know what the people were saying across the pond. We're not building it on a pond. We're building it on a hill that slants downward, has lots of trees, goes across, and has Granger Cliffs, which is a lot of those houses they're talking about. And I know that a resident sent me 5 photographs recently of wind turbines near $1 million houses. I would ask through the chair, if you would ask the expert in Worcester, how many house values went down in Worcester with the wind turbine off of the city manager. I haven't read any articles in the T&G on that. And I brought that up at my committee meeting. How many values went down in Worcester? I haven't heard of anything. I've seen one article in the T&G. I know Worcester News would have had that in the next day if it had. I want to build. I've been against wind turbine projects in this town that didn't work right. The one on Millbury Street, I came up here and spoke against it. Flicker was a big issue there because it would go right into the eyes of the people driving along Millbury Street, cause an automobile accident. We don't have cars driving up there on Prospect Hill or Granger Cliffs. I hope that clarifies Flicker a little bit, because it's not as easy to get Flicker as you think it is. And it's not going to hit, and it's also a limited part of the day. If I work Monday through Friday till 5 and Flicker's at 1 p.m., you know, maybe the town has to mitigate it, maybe it doesn't. Thank you.
So I just wanted to say, and I'm hopefully speaking for the rest of my board. If not, they'll correct me. When this board asks questions, it's not an indication of support or opposition. We had a presentation tonight, and we asked questions on it. We don't have a motion on the table. We don't we didn't have it on our agenda to take a vote. I always feel that the more questions you ask early and the more information you get out there, the more answers you have. If this goes to town meeting, or if it goes to the voters, many times I find, no matter what the vote is, people hang their hats on not having enough information. So when we ask questions, please don't mistake that as a position of opposition. It's a position of wanting as much information as we can out there for those who will decide ultimately whether to site this turbine.
If I said that, I thought you were doing
No,
that.
I just
apologize.
felt like.
I don't remember saying
I just
that.
felt like there was a sense that, that we may have been in opposition because of our questions, whether it be sound or flicker. I want as much information out there as possible so that no one can hang their hat on, geez, I can't support it, I don't have enough information. I accept anyone's vote as long as they have good, accurate information. The more the better. So thank you for your presentation, thank you for your comments, and let's just keep the dialogue going so that we can answer any questions anyone may have.
That's why I came up and tried to clarify that a little bit.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm going to let Mr. Simonian ask a question, then Mrs. Ethia.
Just quickly, I understand, this is like anything else, and we've seen a multitude of things in our community over the years that some of us have been for, some of us have been against. Everyone is going to form their own opinion, and I agree with the chair in the fact that if we don't ask those questions and we don't get that information, then how can you form an educated opinion? Unless you go and ask those questions, and I would advocate to do it anyway, do your own research and find out, because I'm sure nobody wanted to live next to the first guy that owned a car on their street, but we all have one now pretty much. So, technology changes, things change, the world changes, and things we were afraid of 50 years ago, we embrace every day. So, let's ask all the questions and get all the information and then make our decisions.
Mrs. Ethia.
Ellen Ethia, 404 Leicester Street. Just an observation we made a couple weeks ago. We were driving through Gardner, Massachusetts, and Mount Wachusett Community College, I don't know if you know where that is, but if you do a Google Earth, you can find it and see it. And it's not on top of a hill. I think it's Route 68, right next to the building, probably 100 feet from the road, are two wind turbines. And I thought, well, listening to the conversation about flicker, there's classrooms right next to those. But what's even more interesting is across the street is Henry Haywood Hospital. So I gather it wasn't a problem for either the college or the hospital. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just
Absolutely.
one quick thing?
Yep.
The great thing about this process is that we can continue this dialogue. We're still under contract for 9 months, and so we want to keep providing you and everyone with more information. And please ask us questions. And though we are a developer, there's no doubt about that. In this process, the Alternative Energy Committee wanted to work with someone who had practical experience and knew how to get projects developed. I think that's the one difference between maybe us and a typical engineering firm. So we hope to continue this dialogue and provide you with all the information that you need.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
So can I just have a 2-minute recess so Mr. Vanderbroek can get his stuff together?
Sure.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We're just having a 2-minute recess while we... Yep. Okay, this meeting is called back to order. The next item is public comment. Mr. Platukis has signed up under the gambling casino, but he's going to wait because that is an agenda item. So next we have Edie Dow. 83 minutes because we are a half an hour late for a hearing, okay? Thank you. Thank you. And you left this for us? Is this from you tonight?
Yeah, I asked Sharon to give everyone, that's 10 years old. That's how long I've been fighting it.
Okay.
And brought many pictures here over the years, but I'm all done as of tonight. I'm all done. Good evening. I am here only because it has been a long 3 weeks to try to get in to see the manager. These copies that I gave you are 10 years, should give you some information on how important it is to do something, and what the experts tell you on the paper. Boylston and Indian Lake are just two places that have people cutting the bittersweet as a unit. It breaks my heart to see the beautiful bushes at Hillside Cemetery right next to the electric tower, which I used to cut all the time. Can't do it anymore. Where are the caretakers? If Auburn pays these people to care for places they should, and they don't, they should get fired. Sometimes you think nice guys are nice guys, but they don't do their jobs. You have tree wardens, park department, cemetery department, highway, etc., conservation people, and environmental, I hope. And Auburn has selectmen to oversee the town's departments. Thank you.
Thank you, Edie. I'll pass that to Sharon. The next item we have is an auto repair license at 317 Southbridge Street. That is a 7:05 hearing. Is there a motion to open the hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of opening the hearing?
Aye.
Is the applicant here? Alberto Colon, up at the microphone, please. If you could give your name for the record and then tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
Hi, good afternoon.
You can pull that down if you need to.
Good afternoon. My name is Melissa Colon. This is my husband, Heriberto Colon. And what we have is a store for accessories for turbo kits. And what we're looking for is permit to, we also have a garage as well that we would like to do installations to our auto parts.
Is that all you want to say right now? Okay. And you have met with the DCG?
Yes, I
You
have.
understand that they had a discussion with you about putting, if the board approved your license, putting some conditions on it? Are you familiar with those conditions?
Yes, we are.
Okay. And it was properly advertised. Do members have any questions or comments?
Yeah, if I may.
Mr. Holstrom?
Through the chair, have you approached the, the fire department about applying for permits? And, let's see, Board of Health Requirements, Mass DEP, have you applied for any of those applications yet? Or is that in the process?
I believe we did. We applied for a couple of things, plus we also have a zoning board next week as well. So I'm pretty sure we did.
Thank you.
Mr. Burney? Mr. Burney would like to be heard on this. This is our division.
Just to clarify, the condition about the Board of Health and the DEP, when the Colones first came to us at the DCG, they were unsure whether or not there was a floor drain in the garage. So that condition was placed in case, upon visiting the garage, there was a floor drain. There is not currently a floor drain, so there's no necessity for them to file with either the Board of Health or the DEP. My understanding is they've met with the fire department and the building department on those permits, and they're going to the zoning board for aquifer conditions to do the auto repair, which is not required for the turbo kits because there's no fluids involved. So my understanding was they were looking to expand their business, and they will be in front of the zoning board for that on Thursday.
And if you know, so if they expand their business, will it require an additional license from this board?
No, that the auto repair would be all-encompassing, because they're looking to do repairs, plus they do the turbo kit add-ons, so it all falls under the auspices of the auto repair.
So the turbo license would, turbo would be covered under the existing license, and if granted by the ZBA, they would have an
Correct, they would be
additional...
able to expand into things that require fluids.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Simonian?
Yeah, I just have one question. This says, I get the turbo kit installation, and then it says minor repairs. So, I think it's the first time I've seen that designation, minor repairs. Just for the benefit of asking the question, is there some kind of existing list for the people who will be doing inspections there of what's considered minor and what's considered major? Because I don't ever remember seeing that before, and I'm just, wondering, like, you guys have a defining line of what's minor and major,
Well-
or however?
The minor repairs, the where we at, in the garage that we at now, doesn't have a lift, so we're minor, like changing oil pads, car pads, so it's very minor. It's not excessive work, because we don't have a lift to do like a whole bunch of stuff.
Okay, I just want to have an idea of what, that's fair. Thanks.
Are there any other additional board comments or questions? Is there any public comment or questions?
Motion to close the hearing.
Second.
All those in favor of closing the hearing?
Aye.
Any opposed, so voted. Is there a motion on the application?
Make a motion, we approve the license, provided all applicable requirements of the state and town and any of its departments, boards, and commissions have been fulfilled. Said licenses are subject to all the conditions stated upon it. Failure to comply with any and all the conditions shall invalidate the license and render it null and void, and to include the conditions recommended by DCG.
Thank
And
you.
Mr. Holstrom, could you read those into the record, please, if you wouldn't mind?
Okay. And from the DCG, the applicant shall contact the fire department about obtaining all required permits. All vehicles will be parked on paved surfaces. This shall include the customers and the employees. There should be no auto repair outside of the building. Business owner shall apply for a change of tenant occupancy and sign permits from the Building Inspections Division. If floor drains exist, they must meet the Massachusetts DEP and Auburn Board of Health requirements. Parking must comply with the site plan submitted at the time of filing for an occupancy permit. There shall be no paint or body work done without obtaining the required permits from the town and the state.
Thank you, Mr. Holstrom. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, so voted. Thank you.
Thank you. You guys
Granted your
have a-
license. Good luck. The next item is communications. We have none. Under Board of Selectmen items, general items, we have McDonald's at 72 Auburn Street, a request to increase hours in your packet. The applicant is Tim Montville, 72 Auburn Street. They are applying for a 24-hour drive-through license. Is there a representative here? If you could come up and give your name for the record, please.
My name is Lisa Ford.
And Megan Sheehan.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear either of you.
Lisa and Megan.
Okay. And you're authorized tonight to speak on behalf of McDonald's Corporation?
Yes.
Okay, who wants to go first?
So basically, right now we're open from 5:30 a.m. till midnight. That's drive-through and inside. Right now we're looking just to keep the drive-through open past from midnight and just stay open 24 hours, 7 days a week.
Okay. Anything else you want to add? Do board members have any questions or comments? Mr. Simonian?
Just a question. You've seen the conditions from the DCG, and the first condition, the applicant shall conduct a sound study to verify noise impacts of the adjacent neighborhood and so on. Has that been completed?
No, I got an email this morning actually from the Board of Health with the information, but the attachment wasn't attached with what I needed to get, so I sent an email back to him this evening before I came here. I just need the information of exactly what we need.
And Mr. Bernie, he's gone. Well, I guess follow-up question would be, since that condition,
Mr. Pelletier is here to answer
oh,
that.
all right, I'm sorry.
Mr. Pelletier, if you could come up. Mr. Pelletier is here to answer the question.
My bad.
And we have Mr. Pelletier, the Director of Public Health.
Good evening. I did respond to, actually I responded to Tim because he's the one who made the application, but I made a copy to Megan. Boards of health are mandated to answer nuisance complaints. In the town of Auburn, a huge source of these nuisance complaints are these outdoor loudspeakers. We get them a lot at the car dealerships, things like that. DEP has a requirement that the owner or controller of a source of sound has to maintain that sound in such a manner that it's not a nuisance.
Okay.
As to decibel level, pure tone, and or rhythmic. So what I'm looking for from McDonald's is a sound study to determine, one, without their speakers running at 2 a.m., what is the decibel level, what's the ambient sound at the property line of adjoining properties. There's 2 residential properties immediately behind McDonald's. McDonald's, then a vacant lot, then a property, probably 120, 130 feet behind McDonald's. There's also one when the other restaurant moved into, I can't remember the name of the street there, but when the other restaurant moved in, we had multiple complaints about the odors and car parking, nuisance complaints. So what I'm trying to do is curb these complaints before I start getting them. DEP has a policy on sound. Their law says that the control over the sound has to keep it from becoming a nuisance. Their policy is a guideline that says if it creates a 10 decibel increase over the ambient levels, then they have to mitigate it somehow. That doesn't mean that 10 decibel is the drop dead end all, but it's a good guideline to start with. We're dealing with very sensitive hours. These are the hours when people are normally trying to sleep. So if it becomes a nuisance at 4 decibels, we have to address it. The Board of Health would recommend we strive for 0 decibels at the property line.
And this is just referring to the speaker at the drive-through when someone asks what you want to order, right? Is that
correct?
Okay.
I can name 2 towns right now that are in, I'll avoid the word confrontation, I'm just putting it out there because there's a drive-through restaurant with 3 three-deckers immediately behind it. Webster is one town, and I believe Westboro is having a similar problem. They went later in the night, and the decibel level of the speakers on those intercom systems is becoming a public health nuisance to the residences around them.
So, do you know when this will be done?
No, I have somebody that I've contacted. I just need to, he was gonna come in this week, but it was windy and rainy. Thursday was, I think, the day that he was gonna come out, and he said the ambient noise is gonna be higher because of the weather, so we couldn't really get a quiet reading. So we need to find a night where it's quiet and, the wind isn't howling, it's not raining, so we can actually get a base level to start with before we can have the study done.
Fair enough.
So I have a question on sound as well, but it's regarding, potential customers. So what would you do to address noise, say, coming from your parking lot? If, you had several customers come through the drive-through at the same time and just loop around, and now they're, out of the cars because the dining room is closed. They're out in the parking lot.
Security-wise, we can't leave the building, so I guess I'd have to either...
So would you be willing to put a sign on your property that says no?
Oh, there are signs that say no solicitation, parking for McDonald's customers only.
Right.
I guess we could put a sign up with a time limit.
My question was, would you be willing to put a sign up that says no loitering between midnight and 5 a.m.? That way cars would know that, I believe that would cover it, no loitering?
Yeah.
Just so that you don't have groups of cars, like I said, going through the drive-through, looping around, and now they're out of the cars. This is, this isn't a residential area, and this, as Mr. Pelletier pointed out, sleep time. So, I know you have several signs in the parking lot. I think it would be reasonable to put a no loitering between, it's kind of an oxymoron. They shouldn't be loitering anyway, but they've purchased food, so I'm not sure what the language should be. But we don't want people in the parking lot out of their cars eating food during those hours.
I understand. Yes, I can submit that up.
Okay. Do members have any other questions or comments? Mr. Simonian?
Well, it seems that based on that condition, the DCG is in agreement with trying to take a preemptive stance. So I guess I would be in favor of waiting until that study's been done, rather than have one of the situations that Mr. Pelletier described where they're open, then there's complaints, and then we have to do the back and forth. If the study's going to be completed sometime fairly soon, and I would be in favor of revisiting it after the study's been done, but that's just my opinion.
well, it's certainly up to the board. I mean, we could issue a conditional license, or we could wait for the study. Is there any public comment or question? It's not a public hearing, so.
So, one question then. If we, if we grant the conditional license and then the study says the noise would be too much, we would just revoke it, right? Or based.
We could do that. As a licensing authority, we would have to have data to show
Okay.
that. We would call, actually, I believe we would call them in for a hearing to address a violation of their license. We wouldn't just revoke it. We would have to have a hearing.
No, I mean, if we grant the condition would be that this noise study be done. If the noise study comes back and says that there's probably gonna be too much noise, then it wouldn't meet the condition, so we would just.
Right.
The license would become null and void, and we would just, right?
And if you were to make a motion, you could be very clear on that motion as well.
That's
And,
fine.
and also, if the board does issue a conditional license, if you could provide this board with something in writing from Mr. Tim Montville that you were authorized to represent him and accept the decision of the board. He did complete the application. Especially if we are going to put additional conditions on this license, I would like to know that he authorized you to represent him at this hearing. Is there anything else?
So are we gonna wait? Are we gonna wait to get that written?
No, we cannot make it all part of the packet.
Okay. That's fine. We've granted conditional licenses before, so I would make a motion then to grant the 24-hour license based on the conditions of the DCG and the additional condition from the conditions from the Board of Selectmen that pending the outcome of the, let me see, what do they call it? Sound study, and also that we receive something in writing stating that you're authorized to accept the decision of the board on behalf of Mr. Montville. I think that covers.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So voted. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item we have is a vote on maximum useful life of departmental equipment. Enclosed, you have a list concerning the maximum useful life of departmental equipment. Yeah. Before you, you have the list. If we have any questions, we do have someone here to answer a question. Mr. Holstrom, did you have a question?
Yes, I do.
We'll just wait
I
until...
guess just in reading this, on the maximum useful life, it says, finance for the proceeds of the $361,000 from May 7, 2013, so that's our past annual meeting. And is this all equipment that we have in place now, or is this equipment that's going to be purchased?
Good evening. I believe this is equipment that we will be purchasing with the new borrowing that we're trying to do in September.
So through the article on the warrant from the annual town meeting in May, all this equipment will be purchased as of September.
Won't all be purchased, the borrowing will
Okay.
commence in September for these objects.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Mr. Simonian?
I just have one question. I can completely understand setting a maximum useful life on a piece of equipment. We're being asked to set a 10-year maximum useful life on book repairs. What is that? It's not something concrete that I can put my hands on, so I'm just, how does that?
That is a figure that I received from the school department.
So these are repairs on textbooks? Is
I
that?
believe so.
And I'm just
I
trying.
can't honestly answer that, to
Okay.
be honest, truthful.
I'm just wondering, are we saying that when these repairs are done, they'll be good for another 10 years? Is that what we're saying here?
Maximum useful life. What I understand, sir,
Okay.
is that we don't want to borrow money for a longer period of time than what the object is useful for.
That makes sense. That
And
absolutely makes sense.
that's why bond counsel needs this document,
Okay.
okay?
Just seems such a tangible thing, but
Anything else?
intangible. That's fine.
Thank you.
Is there a motion?
Yep, I'd like to make a motion, the maximum useful life of departmental equipment listed below, to be financed with the proceeds of the $361,000 borrowing authorized by the vote of the town passed May 7, 2013 on Article 3, and two, $50,000 borrowing authorized by the vote of the town passed May 7, 2013, Article 36. Is hereby determined pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 7, Paragraph 9, to be as presented on the list attached as provided by the Treasurer Collector.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. The next item we have are appointments, and the first item is regarding the Finance Committee. Enclosed is a letter from Chairman Kevin Hussey requesting to be designated at the at-large position vacated by Michael Carrata. The board would vote to appoint member Kevin Hussey to the at-large position for a term expiring June 30th, 2016. The board would then vote to advertise the Precinct 4 representative, which Mr. Hussey was a representative of, and fill that vacancy. And you have a letter in your packet from Mr. Hussey, Chairman of the Finance Committee. Is there a motion regarding Mr. Hussey's request to be designated as at-large?
Make a motion, we designate Kevin Hussey at-large for the Finance Committee.
Second.
With a term expiring,
Excuse me?
with a term expiring
Oh, for the time-
6/30.
Term expiring 6/30/16.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Mr.
So his current term would expire prior to 2016?
His, let me see, yes, but he's filling the unexpired term of Mr. Carrata.
Okay.
His current position expires in 15.
Okay.
Anything else? So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. So now we would need to, I'll entertain a motion to advertise a vacancy for Precinct 4 on the Finance Committee.
So moved.
Second.
All those, any discussion? All those in favor? Any
Aye.
opposed? So voted. Regarding the Zoning Board of Appeals, in your packet, we have a resignation from Mr. John Kerwin, who was just appointed as a full member. He is resigning from the ZBA because he is moving out of town this month. Is there a motion to accept his resignation?
So moved with a note to say thank you for his service.
Is there a second?
I'll second for discussion.
Discussion, Mr. Simonian?
It seems that two of us don't have that.
I don't have a copy of the letter.
Yeah, and I believe the letter went to the manager because he resigned from a couple of boards.
Through the chair, the letter is not in the packet. The letter was provided to the board members when we received it. It was actually addressed to me because of the fact that I had, as town manager appointed to the Economic Development Committee, on which he also sat, he had submitted a letter to me, which I then put a copy of in all the box of all of the board members, and I believe we might have sent it via email, PDF form as well, but we do have it here if you want to read the original.
No, just, we'll take a minute for members to have the opportunity to look at the letter.
While you're reading it through the chair, he's obviously also resigning from the Economic Development Committee, so that seat would be posted as well.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
What was the motion?
To accept the resignation.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. The next item would be to clarify the vote on a member's designation. The vote had voted to appoint Mr. Lawrence Chicolo to the Zoning Board of Appeals at its meeting on July 15, 2013, but did not designate him as a permanent or alternate member. The board may vote to clarify Mr. Chicolo's designation as a permanent member or alternate member. Currently, we have three designated full members, and we have one undesignated member, and we have one alternate member. So, if that helps the board. Mr. Simonian.
Make a motion to appoint him as a full member. He wanted the job, he got voted in, let's see what he does.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. And we don't have it on this agenda, but at our next meeting, we'll have to include advertising the alternate or full position, as well as designating another full member. The next item we have is
Excuse me, if I may, we have an alternate now, but he will be a voting member. He will be stepping in just to fill that extra position until we take that vote.
well, because they're only...
Make that decision on next meeting.
Because they're only currently with Mr. Chicolo's designation as a full member, then they currently have 4 full members, so the alternate, and which there is one right now, would automatically move into that voting seat because they're short.
Thank you.
Not so designated as a full member, but as a voting member as an alternate.
And we will be taking that up at our next meeting?
We will be.
Thank you.
The next item we have is a drain layers license for Wachusett Landscaping Construction, and closed are the application documents and recommendation from the super superintendent. And we have an application for Mr. Mark Sinkovich, and to refresh members' memory, we have a policy that does not require the applicant to be before the board because the sewer superintendent does the background check as well as checking references. So you have a letter from Mr. Mitchell in your packet as well. Is there a motion?
Make a motion, we approve the license, provide all applicable requirements of the state and town and any of its departments, boards and commissions have been fulfilled. Said license subject to all conditions stated upon it. Failure to comply with any and all the conditions shall invalidate the license and render it null and void.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Simonian?
Did this person already have a license previously? It sounds familiar. No? Sorry. Not a big deal. I just wondering how long it,
What does it say in the application?
I don't think it says, does it?
Renewal.
Oh, it is a renewal. All right, there you go. Thanks.
Any more questions?
Good.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. We have an additional drain layers license application for Sataro Construction Corporation, Robert Sataro. Same circumstances, same conditions. Is there a motion?
Make a motion, we approve the license, provide all applicable requirements of the state and town and any of its departments, boards, and commissions have been fulfilled. Said license subject to all the conditions stated upon it. Failure to comply with any and all the conditions shall invalidate the license, render it null and void.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. Next item we have is gift acceptances. We have from the police department in the amount of $1,550 to the K-9 gift account from the Boston One Fund Bike Run Greg Hill Foundation.
Motion to accept.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, so voted. And to the fire department gift account from Edward Alvarez, we have $25.
Motion to accept.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, so voted. For the DPW, for the dog kennel, a Maytag air conditioner has a value of $25. And that is a gift, must be an anonymous gift? Well, that's who's requesting it.
It is not filled out. We can clarify. I believe I know, but the person did not put their name, so I want to find out if that's intentional or not. So at this point, it is.
So at this point, it would be an anonymous donation of a Maytag air conditioner with a value of $25 for the dog kennel.
Motion to accept.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So voted. And we have for the DPW Parks and Recreation in the amount of $1,678 for a term of March 13 through July of 13. $1,678 in fertilizer, weed and feed, grass seed, and miscellaneous lawn products, and that is from the Home Depot on Washington Street in Auburn.
Motion to accept.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. Okay. The next item we have no proclamations. From the chief, we have a request to schedule a hearing for an alleged license violation, the Gold Depot at 809 Southbridge Street, and to notify the license holder. So I would like to be heard on this. I know we had said that we wouldn't be meeting in the summer unless we had, a reason to meet.
Madam Chairman, may I? I'm not on this agenda, but I am a victim.
We're not taking testimony regarding,
No, I just wanted to make sure I could get a notification when this hearing would be.
yeah, we're actually going to set it tonight.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So I would like the fourth Monday. Could you give me the date?
It is.
So this is, I think falls under the category of a the board will make its own determination, but the initial findings are that it would fall under the category of a significant violation, so I'd like to schedule this as soon as possible.
26th.
So I would like to schedule our fourth Monday meeting, which would be a regularly scheduled meeting, on
26th.
August 26th.
That's fine.
Is there a motion?
Motion to schedule the Selectmen's meeting on August 26th, Monday, August 26th, 2013.
And schedule a...
Scheduled to begin at 7 o'clock
Okay.
PM.
So is this, all right, we'll take it in two sessions. So we've made a motion to schedule a selectmen's meeting for the 26th to begin at 7 PM. Is there a second?
Yes, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so now could I have a separate motion to schedule a alleged license violation hearing for the Gold Depot, 809 Southbridge Street, to begin at 7:05 PM?
Motion to schedule a hearing for Gold Depot, located at 809 Southbridge Street, on Monday, August 26th, 2013, to begin at 7:05 PM.
Second.
And to notify the license holder, did I say that?
And notify the license holder and
Okay.
anyone,
Okay.
right? Anyone
Right.
who's...
And so there was a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed to voting? So the hearing will take place at 7:05 on the 26th, and at that time, anyone who will give testimony will be sworn in, and we'll hear from anyone who's giving testimony at that time.
Thank you, Madam.
You're welcome.
If I don't have a selection meeting myself, request.
Okay. All righty, thank you. Okay, so the next item, member items. Actually, because Mr. Platoukis has been waiting, I think I'll take them out of order. We'll take member item, discussion on Millbury Slots Power, and that's Mr. Simonian's item, so you can go first.
I wanted to put this on the agenda because, in case anyone's not aware of it, Millbury has signed an agreement to at least go forward with the process of looking at putting in the slots parlor in a location in Millbury. And I've had discussion with the town manager, and I know through the discussion, she was also has an agenda item, so I don't know if we're going to handle this all at
I was
once.
going to say, I'll entertain a motion to move up item 7B, gaming facility, under town manager items, and we'll take them together.
So moved.
Second?
All right, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So right now before the board is member item, discussion on Millbury Slots Parlor by Mr. Simonian, and town manager item, gaming facility, which you have correspondence in your packet, Mrs. Jacobson. So Mr. Simonian, go ahead.
I just think it's important that we start having the discussions, get as much information as we can, because through the discussions, and I'm sure the town manager will speak more to it, I've looked into it a little more on my own based on the conversations we've had, and I did briefly speak with one of the Millbury Selectmen about it. So for the sake of the people here in Auburn understanding what the process will be going forward, and hopefully allow them to get as much information as possible, because we do have to provide an impact statement on what we feel, and again, I'm sure the town manager will expound on that, what we feel the impact will be to Auburn, because I certainly have some concerns about traffic and other things, and not just in the location of the slots parlor, but yeah, I think there's definitely a potential of the folks from the other side of Auburn, Leicester, and those areas creating traffic issues all the way through the town, but I'm sure that will all be part of it. So anyway, I wanted to put it on the agenda, have the discussion, and at least give people the opportunity to understand what the process will be for us going forward, and the potential impact, and all of those things. So that is why I requested it to be on tonight's agenda.
So did you want to address your item?
Yes, and interestingly enough, I was going to be providing the board with an update anyway, so I had told Mr. Simonian tag team this. I had first brought the item to the attention of the board, I believe, back in March, when this proposed slot facility was potentially going into Worcester. And I believe in April, we had an item on the agenda, and then I forwarded the board some draft regulations that had been developed by the Mass Gaming Commission related to surrounding community designation, and asked for comments so that I could include those comments in written testimony to the Gaming Commission. So just as an update, received the comments back from the board by April 22nd, and then put together written testimony that was submitted to the Mass Gaming Commission on April 29th, which primarily, I believe at the time we talked about it, was concerning the deadlines and how tight they were, and it really didn't give communities a lot of time to pursue either the impact analysis that we need to do or the surrounding community designation itself. So we did submit that written testimony. Then just by way of an update, as Mr. Simonian said, well, first of all, the Mass Gaming Commission actually held a hearing on the draft regulations on May 3rd, so we did have written testimony to them by that time. The Millbury Board of Selectmen approved of the host community agreement as part of their process on July 23rd, and they had an open hearing on August 1st, which was, I believe, their first public hearing. On August 5th, I sent a letter to the slot applicant seeking surrounding community designation that's in your packet. And just to briefly, I'll go through the timeline, then I can briefly just explain what that means. The Millbury Planning Board's first hearing is actually this evening at 7:30, and that is their planning board hearing on the special permit. It is likely going to take several sessions, but that was the first one tonight. I requested from the town manager's office in Millbury a copy of the tape of tonight's meeting so that the board could have it. It's most likely going to be online, but I just wanted to make sure that the board had a copy of it so you could see what the initial presentation was. And I also requested that they send me any written correspondence that was submitted to the planning board tonight that we could see. The referendum vote in Millbury is scheduled for September 24th, and that is when it needs to be on the ballot townwide as to whether to approve the host community agreement that was approved by the Board of Selectmen in July. Then what they call the RFA2 application, which the applicant would be submitting to the Mass Gaming Commission, is due October 4th. The decision on the slot license will be in December of 2013. One slot license in the state. So now to back up, the letter that's in your packet tonight is a request that I sent to the Executive Vice President of Rush Street Gaming, which is part of the applicant, Mass Gaming and Entertainment LLC, seeking consideration for surrounding community designation. There's 3 different ways that a community can be designated as a surrounding community. And I have been in conversation with Mass Gaming Commission just to verify this and to clarify the regulations. One is that the gaming applicant can designate the town as a surrounding community and put that designation in their actual application to the state by October 4th. They can, at that time, also submit a agreed-upon, executed surrounding community agreement as part of their application, or they can simply designate us with the discussion still ongoing about the agreement. The second would be to submit the application with us designated as the surrounding community along with an executed agreement. The third mechanism is that if the applicant does not designate the town, then the town has 10 days from that October 4th deadline for submission of the application to seek designation from the Mass Gaming Commission. So if the applicant does not make the effort to designate us, and we've obviously now requested it in writing, we can request such designation by the state within that 10-day period. So by October 14th, we would have to submit a request to the state. The second part of this letter, and therefore the part that Mr. Simone was talking about, is the impact analysis. The surrounding community agreement would presumably provide the town with mitigation for any negative impacts on the community as a result of the facility going into an abutting community. In order to come up with a surrounding community designation similar to a host community designation, I firmly believe that we need to have an impact analysis. We need to make sure that we know all of the impacts. The regulations require that surrounding communities, when they seek this designation from the state, if we have to go that route, we have to identify what those impacts are. Those impacts can be public safety, public works, public infrastructure, effect on assessed value of neighboring homes. It can also be economic impacts and any socioeconomic impacts. So in order to come up with an impact analysis of what the impacts are actually going to be, which would include a traffic analysis, I've also requested in this letter technical assistance financing from the developer, from the applicant, to provide to the town so that we could secure a consultant to do the impact analysis. We've also contacted the town of Raynham, which recently went through this process, just to get an idea of what they spent on an impact study, and their impact study was approximately $30,000. And it ranges, I've got another request out to find out, if it's probably going to be somewhere between $30,000 and $40,000 to get the impact study done. And there's also should be funding available if the applicant agrees to give to the town to help negotiate the actual agreement, which would be the legal component of it. Therefore, working with Town Council Bob Hennigan on the actual written agreement, or our MOU, between the town and the applicant. So the timing here is really critical because and I would say that the applicant contacted me the day after they received the letter. We've been playing telephone tag. He has contacted me a couple of times. I've contacted him again, and our schedules just haven't meshed in the last 2 days, but he did receive the letter. He did try to contact me, so I anticipate having a conversation hopefully tomorrow with him. But my concern is that we've got to get this funding in place shortly. I think the preference would be to be designated as the surrounding community in their application. I don't know that we would be able to come up with an agreement by their submission of an October 4th application if we haven't even had the impact analysis done yet, because we would be developing an agreement without the facts that need to go into the agreement. So if I'm going to be working with the state to find out if we can be designated as a surrounding community and continue to work on the agreement, which I know we can, and then find out what date we have.
Mr. Holstrom?
Through the chair, has the town been proactive in looking at impacts and concerns if this was to actually go through? Have we already started to look at how it would affect us?
Through the chair, internally, yes, we started, when this proposal was first submitted for the city of Worcester, we actually started to meet internally with the fire chief, the police chief, the development and inspectional services, the CFO, myself, and several others. We've probably had 4 internal meetings to try to look at what the impacts are, because we knew we were going to be up against a time crunch. Then the project switched to Millbury, and when it switched to Millbury, we had another internal meeting just to make sure that we were now shifting our focus to Millbury and what types of impacts there are. And the police and fire have both chiefs done some outreach to other communities that have slot facilities to see what types of impacts, although we really do need a professional analysis. We can do our own internal analysis, which we've started. We can take a look at what the impacts may be to the roadways, but we really need to get a traffic study to do that. So yes, we have been meeting internally on this probably since March, sometime in March. And now we've got the application, well, the formal request for the funding to help us get the impact analysis done.
Mr. Simonian?
Do we have any information from Millbury on any public hearings that they're having, that if residents from Auburn were interested and wanted to go and, hear the discussions? Do we have that?
Well, they actually had their initial public hearing about 2 weeks ago on a Thursday night at Millbury High School. I actually attended. There were about, I would say, 250 to 300 residents in attendance, because I just made some notes myself. It certainly would be worth it for us to request a copy of that forum as well. It was televised, but it was open to resident questions and comments only. It wasn't open to non-residents, and they had to state their address when they asked their question. But a lot of information, well, they presented a traffic mitigation plan, which certainly didn't seem adequate to me, just, as a layperson. But a lot of the questions and issues raised by residents and business owners would be what I would believe issues that would be looked at in a impact statement, because they're not going to come forward with some of these concerns, but residents who live in the area, who know the area, came forward with these concerns. And I'm going to let Mr. Platukas speak in a minute, but it certainly was informative. It wasn't advertised. I think it was a select board member who told me about it, and I ended up going that night. But it was a very contentious public hearing and a lot of good questions raised. But I would just say we don't know what the impact on Auburn is going to be right now. We can look at what is happening in Millbury, but we don't know what the impact is going to be in Auburn. So my question to the managers: if you can't negotiate funding assistance with Rush Gaming, are you going to, through other funds, conduct an impact study?
Through the chair, I would come back to the board and ask if they wanted to go forward and do that, given the level of funding for this. There is one other option. When I read the regs carefully, there were 2 other funds that were set up by the legislation that allow communities to access funding for impacts. I don't know if the funding can be used for impact studies or just purely for the impacts. But if this process didn't work, my next try was to go through the other 2 funds that were set up, some community impact funds that were set up.
Well,
the concern is that if the developer, if the applicant does not designate us as a surrounding community, then we have to go to the state and get designated as a surrounding community. So we may want to hold off on doing the impact study until we know the state is going to designate us, because we would be spending $30,000 or $40,000 at that point, potentially of our own money, without any guarantees that we're going to be named as a surrounding community.
So, and I know it's like reading tea leaves, but I can't imagine that the state would not designate us as a surrounding community, considering we have 5 major highways that go through Auburn directly to that site. I mean, we're not, I can't imagine that we wouldn't be, and I think it's going to be important to have, start this impact analysis soon. What I would like to see is at least put this on the agenda for the next meeting, and have a further discussion so that we can at least have a conditional vote to authorize the manager to move forward, because this is critical, and we absolutely need this impact statement. And I just can't imagine, like I said, with 5 major highways and direct routes through residential areas designated as scenic roads, that we wouldn't be designated as a surrounding community. So I'm hoping to get this on the next agenda. Mr. Simonian?
Yeah, just one more question, and you mentioned it a little bit, 'cause based on what I could get to read, it seems like the timelines they have, either way, we're gonna be up against it the whole way through. We're gonna be right on that edge of getting the things we need to get submitted, once we get, if we get the designation, hopefully, I agree, we will. So,
The timelines are very tight. If the state designates us as a surrounding community, we're given by statute 30 days to negotiate an agreement with the developer. So 30 days is not a lot of time to negotiate an agreement with the developer and get the study done that you need to negotiate the agreement, which is why it's so important to get the study moving sooner than that. And if it doesn't, we can't come to an agreement within 30 days statutorily, then it goes to an arbitration that is set up by the state. And when we submitted the testimony back in the end of April, this is one of the issues that we highlighted in the testimony, which is that these timelines are so restrictive, it's going to bind our hands with getting a comprehensive study that you need to get an agreement together. I don't want to say we need to look at other sources yet, because I'd like to still pursue this. The letter went out last week. They did contact me right away, so I'm hoping that we can work with the developer, and that the developer will understand that we, in our opinion, we believe that we're one of the communities that really should be designated as a surrounding community. This facility is closer to the Auburn line than it is to any of the other abutting communities. So I think we do have a good chance of having them recognize that, and hopefully they'd be willing to work with us to at least get this study started.
Well, hopefully, once you have this conversation with Mr. Levitt and you connect, this may all be for nothing, and that, they'll move forward with designating us as a surrounding community. Mr. Platoukis, you had waited to be heard on this. Thank you. And Mr. Platoukis had originally signed up under citizens' comment for gaming, but I asked him to wait. Yes.
Thank you. Bob Platoukis, this is scary. This is the 3rd time in 6 years that Millbury Street's going to be impacted in a negative way. I watched the street in front of my house crumble with truck traffic that went by, and I was the only person at a Millbury meeting talking about this issue, and I presented them with the dust from in front of my driveway. And the state was shocked. 1, it's a scenic road. 2, they had changed the traffic pattern to impact Millbury Street more than anything else. When the Millbury Mall was built, we got almost 10 times more traffic. I used to be able to walk across to my mailbox. I get all my mail at the post office now. I wouldn't try to cross that street. It's deadly. That's with the Millbury Mall. Then we had the closing of the bridge under the diversion tunnel, which Auburn should get more compensation for because of the big hole through the middle of Auburn here, building all the flies and mosquitoes, and in helping the city of Worcester so it doesn't flood all the way down Cambridge Street, but Auburn takes the full impact of that. They were going to close that road for 2 years and send the traffic in front of my house on Millbury Street. Then there was the 3rd time, which I hope doesn't happen anymore, but probably will, is at Christmas time. It's not unusual for the town of Millbury to change the direction of the traffic or to mitigate the traffic flow in their town so it doesn't hurt them as much, but sends more through Millbury Street to them. And that's exactly the proposal that they're making now in the T&G. And this, I hope that we can separate this problem that I've seen coming for years, and that there's an entity called the town, and there are entities called the citizens, and they don't always get together. They're held apart separately, and their conclusions many times are different. And on Millbury Street, it has been this way. And an example of this is it a scenic road? It needs to be paved. Who pays for it? The state says it's not a connecting road. If it was a connecting road, they'd have to pay for it. Yet in the T&G, a state worker said it was a connecting road recently. So am I confused? Sure. Is it a connecting road when the state should have to pay for the bill between one? He said it was a connecting road between 146 and Route 20. That makes it their responsibility. What happens to it as a scenic road and the residents on it who bought their houses? You want to talk about the lowering of house values? Because the state would widen the road. We've even had one resident on there write a letter to the former executive secretary asking for it not to be paved so people didn't drive fast. Crazy as that sounds. They've got a lot of different opinions, but the road needs to be paved. The drainage was done, and the bottom third of the road towards Millbury has been paved 3 times. The top half hasn't been paved at all, which is, I don't understand that there was no policy of paving until Bill Coyle came in, and I have to thank him for that. But the drainage was put in towards the Millbury line. But a lot of places on Millbury Street, the drainage is awful. Some of the residents put in their own. And is it going to be a connecting road? Something for you to discuss, but you're going to have a DCG meeting, but you're not going to have any community input. Do you see what I'm saying? It's a quandary that I'm in, and I've seen it developing over a number of years, that an entity called the town and an entity called the citizens. And somehow they have to get together and communicate with each other better. But I hope that you do something about Millbury Street, because if they widen it, you don't have a scenic road. So and a Christmas vacation week, I hope that doesn't happen again. And, the other proposal they were making was, guess what? To stop the traffic from going through Millbury, if they put the SWAT power where the junkyard is now for collecting metal, they can only take a right. But getting there, they come from Auburn, over Millbury Street to McCracken Road into the casino. Isn't going to take them very long coming up 395 to find out that Millbury Street is a shortcut. Isn't going to take very long at all. Didn't take long when the Millbury Mall was built. And they don't pay us anything for that, yet they're getting all these tax dollars and our road's getting destroyed. Stand out there someday. You'd love to read the Rhode Island and Connecticut license plates that go by there. Go up to Cumberland Farms on South Street. Gas costs 30 more cents in Auburn, in Connecticut, than it does in Auburn. Every afternoon you see 6 or 7 Connecticut cars filling up every day, hour after hour. It's amazing. So we're being impacted not only by the Millbury Mall, now we're going to buy a SWAT's power, and by the price of gas, and people who are coming up here for jobs, going over Millbury Street to get to the Millbury Mall. You know what a terrible entrance they have. So I just ask you to consider that. I'll stop talking. I don't know what the answers are, but there are some real issues here. But I really think that they should start paying for the paving of Millbury Street, and the citizens of Auburn shouldn't have to pay one dime of tax dollars, because certainly Millbury should be kicking in for it, because we're taking their traffic and they're taking all the tax dollars from the Millbury Mall. It was bad enough they stole our businesses, you know? Now they take our tax dollars and they don't give us anything back. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just have to say the traffic counts, when I was at the public hearing, were mind-boggling. 4,000 cars an hour going in and out of that mall at peak time.
Through the chair, we've done some preliminary analysis based on what we understanding of the proposal. We do have a copy of the proposal, a copy of what was given to the board. But I was also asked recently, I believe Mr. Simonian asked me if there was an opportunity for people to testify, and as the chair has said, there was a public hearing. They weren't accepting testimony from non-residents, but the state has told me that after the October 4th deadline for submission of applications, the host community is required by statute to hold a public hearing to which designated surrounding communities are invited. So again, the importance of being designated as a surrounding community, so we could be invited and hopefully have a voice at that public hearing. Without that designation, there's no guarantee that a non-Millbury resident could speak unless you were in a surrounding community. So we've got to get that designation either from the applicant or the state.
Mr. Simonian?
Probably redundant to say this, but I'm just, for the sake of saying it, we get that designation by every possible means we have. We get the date of that hearing. Let's get that information overkill to the residents of Auburn. So anyone who has a concern, a question, or anything can get to that meeting so they know exactly the time and date of when that's going to occur.
And also, I know we had a discussion earlier regarding the planning board meeting and the request to get that tape. Maybe if we could ask Mr. Spain to notify you as town manager so this board can know of any upcoming forums or public hearings. We may not have the opportunity to be heard, but like I said, it was very, very informative, 2.5-hour public forum. Mr. Page, on this item? Okay, please come up.
I just want to say I agree with everything that Mr. Patukas had just said, but the thing is, it's not just Millbury Street that's going to be impacted. It's going to be Jade Hill, it's going to be Mount Clair, it's going to be Elm Street, it's going to be Stone Street, it's going to be Brook Street. All those streets in that whole area are going to be impacted. It's not just going to be one. Because as Mr. Patukas says, at Christmas time, the mall, it's crazy. People coming up Mount Clair, Millbury Street, and Old Common Road. It's like a freeway on these small, narrow roads. And if you're going to put anything in over there, slots, whatever, it's going to devastate all them roads, not just Millbury Street. But you need, if you're going to do a study, you should do the study of all those roads in that area for the impact.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I would agree with you, it'll be much more than just that, because in discussion at the forum, they discussed the traffic backup getting off at the 146 exit in Millbury. And if anyone's tried to get off the Mass Pike at 146 at 5 o'clock on a Friday, forget about it. So it doesn't take long before people will realize, let's buzz up to exit 10 with 8 toll booths, fly through Auburn, and use all the cut roads. So this will all be part of the impact statement, and this is why I said that, residents bring up issues that others may not, and it was, I believe that's what a consultant would do, is reach out to neighborhoods as well and have discussions with neighbors. So I again feel strongly that we move forward quickly with this impact. Mr. Simonian.
And I think we talked about it a little bit, and from what I read, the impact statement covers not just traffic patterns, but additional traffic services, safety, all pretty much from one corner of the town to the other. I don't think I think it's pretty comprehensive. It doesn't leave any stone unturned as far as, if there's an impact to we have to have additional police on duty for any reason, fire, if any of that stuff is all part of the study, if I read it correctly. So.
Anything else on this item?
Just close with, I'll keep the board informed if we find out from the applicant, even if it's prior to a meeting, I'll let you know if we get that designation. And we are working internally to identify what firms we might have as an option. Again, from a timing perspective, if this is subject to procurement under 30B and we have to put it out to bid to get a consultant, we're not going to make these timelines. So it's my understanding that DCHD has a list of approved consultants that can be used for these studies, so we'd likely be going off of the DHCD list. to use a consultant, so we don't have to go through the bid process. It would still be in compliance with 30B.
Great, thank you. Then back to Mr. Simonian's member items. We have discussion on military surplus items. Mr. Simonian.
Yeah, this one's pretty quick. Something that Mr. Platukis brought up, I think it was at one of our June meetings, and I don't know if anyone else saw it. There was a recent article in the Telegram regarding communities that have taken advantage of the very prospect that he brought up, in that the downsizing of the military and the surplus equipment being bought at a lower cost than what we would normally pay. And I just, so through the chair to the town manager, is this something we've started to look at in any way, or our plan going forward to see if there's a way we can benefit from this as it continues? Because while the opportunity is there, the window of opportunity will certainly close at some point.
Through the chair, we have looked at this as well as other opportunities for surplus property to see if there's anything that we can use. The federal GSA, the General Services Administration, when they declare federal property as being surplus, it first goes to all 50 states, as I think the chair had mentioned before. It goes to the states first. Then the states have an opportunity to bid on it, and then after the states have the opportunity to purchase it, it goes to the municipal level, where the municipalities have an option to purchase it. Sometimes by the time it gets to that level, there isn't a lot of equipment left. This does not apply, however. Well, there is a fee that's based on 10% of the value of the property, but it doesn't apply to vehicles, motor vehicles, which that has to be done by the actual value of the property. So yes, we have looked into it. We'll continue to look into it. Occasionally we receive an email from I believe it's A&F, they're not required to notify us, it's my understanding, but occasionally we have received an email from them or from one of their contractors stating that there's equipment available and are we interested. So we see what's available. And we'll just keep our eye on it.
Do we have any kind of wish list or anything that things we might need over the next? I see he's saying yes, so.
Through the chair, I think it's, occasionally you can get something that might be
Okay.
have value,
Yeah.
but I think also it's similar to the town. When we declare property, first we ask other departments if they want property, and if they can't use it or if it's broken, it gets declared surplus by the board, and then we have to sell it, and it's
Yeah.
usually for scrap, or sometimes it's just disposed of because there's no value to it. So
Okay.
if there is ever an opportunity to get something with value, we're absolutely interested in it, and we'll keep our eye on it.
I wouldn't put a wish list on it.
No,
It's a lot of it is, like she said.
Just if something matches
yeah,
up,
yeah.
we have an opportunity to grab
Yeah.
it. That's,
We
And
look at, anytime we see any kind of surplus property, even if it's from other departments, even, occasionally you get a contact from a private company that's, changing and wants to know if we want desks or something, we look at that.
all right, thank you.
Anything else on that item?
I'm good.
The next item, we're,
You,
Mr. Platukis.
Just want to go set just give me something to set that up.
Very quickly, there were just two things that really struck me when I was talking about that government surplus. One was large generators in case the grid goes out again, which is nice to have on hand that would power the high school. Something like that, I think, you could be looking for in emergency situations. The other one is one the fire chief had a very interesting proposal that new developments where there are no fire hydrants actually have pools of water in the ground. Well, when I was in the Army, we used to tow trucks around that were full of water, and that type, there are many places in Auburn, including my street, where there are no fire hydrants. And sometimes it takes more than the water you have on the truck to put out the fire. Then you have to get another source of water. And if you had a few of these trucks sitting there full of water that simply need to be towed to the fire, it seems like it would be advantageous for those people who don't have fire hydrants. And you don't have to buy you just have to buy the potable water trailer, which they're quite large, as Mr. Simone can probably attest to, but I know I used them when I was out in the field in the Army, and they carry a lot of water and would be very helpful. Those were two ideas for the fire department and for emergency situations that Mr. Holmstrom might be interested in something like that too. But they sell those almost cheaply, just filled with water. I remember the fire chief on TV saying it's hard sometimes to get the water when you need it because of the mud, and one of the sources is almost dried up. So if these were already filled with water, you won't have that question coming up. And of course, you can buy one of their huge pumps. There's one thing about Army material, it's of the highest quality. It has to work when you're in the field. So it's been taken care of, because if it doesn't work, men and women die. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You, Mr. Patukis. Yep.
Through the chair, just to respond, thank you, Mr. Patukis. We also, we've been prioritizing what items each department needs, because when we're always looking for grants, whether it be a surplus item or a grant, we've got ongoing prioritization lists of what we need. So for instance, in emergency management, and Mr. Holstrom will know this from his days as emergency management director, when we receive grant opportunities from Homeland Security, NEMA, or FEMA, we have to identify what our priorities are, and in that case, we get together with DPW, police, and fire, and decide what are the things that we need the most. Here's the money we have, and let's go for it. And we've been very successful on those grants. We most recently were about to take delivery, Jeff, on the debris removal trailer, which is something that DPW indicated they needed. So we went to Homeland Security, we applied for a trailer, we got the trailer, its value is over $20,000. It's a regional trailer to be used with Millbury and Leicester, and it will be housed here in Auburn. We also received about $18,000 in Homeland Security funds from unexpended balances from the FY09 Homeland Security funds, which we submitted to DPW, police, and fire, and they were allowed to select items off of a AEUL, which is an authorized equipment list, AEL. And we've got new cones, we got roadblocks, so we're constantly updating the list of what we need, looking for grants that can fund it. And the light tower, DPW requested a great request, requested a light tower. It was about $8,500 for a light tower. We have so many highways, as you mentioned, Madam Chair, that we have a lot of highways, and if we have an accident or a road construction project or something on our highways at night, we could really use that light tower, which is, it's a great piece of equipment. So we were able to get that as well. We requested it, and Homeland Security Council approved it. So we're constantly trying to update it, always looking for a way to fund the things that we need.
Okay, thank you. So the manager needs a second to set up a presentation, so I'm going to move on to the minutes while we're waiting for that. So before you have the minutes of November 13th, 2012, are there any corrections or omissions? Hearing none, the chair will accept them as presented. We have the minutes of November 27th, 2012. Are there any corrections or omissions? Mr. Simonian?
November 26th.
What did I say? Oh.
27th.
Did I say? Wow.
Just to be clear.
November 26th, 2012. Any corrections or omissions? The chair will accept them as written. We have the minutes of December 10th, 2012. Are there any corrections or omissions? The chair will accept them as written. And the minutes of December 27th, 2012. Any corrections or omissions? The chair will accept them as written. We will go back to manager items.
And before we continue, to Sharon again, thank you for your work. Minutes are always comprehensive and detailed and well spelled out, and I want to say thank you.
And accurate.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. So we will go back to town manager items, and we are at annual report on legal expenses.
Through the chair, thank you. In your packet tonight, there is a written report on the legal expenditures that the Board of Selectmen had asked me to provide to you annually following the end of a fiscal year. Last year was the first time we had provided that report, and it detailed legal expenditures, both from Town Council and Labor Council, as well as overall, for the year, for that fiscal year, as well as a comparison to the year prior to it, and we were able to go back to '09 for purposes of the report. So this year we are, it's in your packet. What I have up here tonight is just an explanation of what's in your packet, so I'm happy to give you a copy of this as well. It's the exact same charts that you have in your packet. They're just in a little bit different order because I thought it might be easier to follow along with it, but certainly I can give you a copy of this, hard copy as well. Give me 1 second here. So as you know, and this may be repetitive from last year, but just a little bit of background, we contract our legal services. Right now, we have town council is attorney Robert Hennigan, and his team consists of attorney Adam Coble and paralegal Sandy Roy. Labor counsel is through Myrick O'Connell, and our chief labor counsel is attorney Dee Moskis. And we also work with attorney Sharon Siegel, attorney Nick Anastopoulos, and paralegal Susan Hunt. So those are the two teams that we contract with. I'm happy to report that when we did the analysis this year, we went back to a 5-year. We did a 5-year, a 3-year, and a 1-year analysis. So the total legal expenditures in fiscal year 13 that just closed on June 30th were $137,898.59. That represents a 1-year decrease of 27.30% over FY12, a 3-year decrease of 43.65% over FY11, so that's the 3-year, and then the 5-year decrease is 57.28%, which goes back to 2009. Here's an overall view on the total legal expenditures. As you can see, 2009 was the highest year at $322,815.52. This year again, $137,898.59. One of the reasons that you're seeing that that large amount in '09, there were some negotiations that were taking place at that time, and there were also very large lawsuit. But overall, almost every category was up in '09. So the 1 year, again, the 1 year for the last fiscal year, we are down this current fiscal year 27.3% from fiscal year 12. This is just another way of showing you that decrease. So over the 1 year, a 3-year and 5-year periods, respectively, 27.30% over 1 year, 43.65% reduction over 3 years, and a 57.28% reduction over 5 years. And these are the costs of the total legal expenditures. So this includes town council, which is general counsel, labor counsel, and special litigation, which I just would point out here, it's not going to show up because it's such a small amount this year, but this, last year we had 0% under special litigation. This year we had about $1,100, and that was specifically related to a case that labor counsel was representing, but because of the way the case was filed, we had to engage a different type of attorney for $1,100. So just to now break it down, town council and labor council. In town council, fiscal year 13 that just closed out, $82,558.58. That's the total amount spent on town council. This represents a 3.78% decrease over FY12, a 4.09% decrease over FY11, and a 35.5% decrease over FY09. So those are the 1 year, 3-year, and 5-year decreases. Labor council, FY13 total labor council expenditures $54,053.01. This represents a 1-year decrease of 47.98% over FY12, a 61.1% decrease, 61.01% decrease over FY11, which is your 3-year, and a 47.23% decrease over the 5-year back to FY09. And this shows you what those costs are. So as you can see, the 1-year costs on, we're now here on town council. So just to graphically show you on town council, back in '09, we spent $127,990.56. That's been steadily decreasing every year, and this year we are at $82,558.58. So that, again, that is a 1-year decrease of 3.78%. Here is showing the 3-year decrease of 4.09 and the 5-year decrease of 35.5%. Now to switch to labor council expenditures. Total labor council expenditures this past year were only $54,053.01. This is a 47.98% reduction over FY12, when our costs last year were $103,879, which was also a decrease in the FY11, which is the 3-year. At that time had been $138,647.61 primarily because about 60% of that cost in FY11 was attributable to negotiations. Here, we're illustrating the reduction over the 1, 3, and 5-year periods in Labor Council expenditures. 47.98% 1 year, 61.01% 3 years, and 47.23% over the 5-year period. What makes up our legal expenditures and what types of things do we pay for? And obviously, while we can work very hard, and we have worked hard to reduce our legal costs, there are things that we absolutely have to have. We have to protect the town. We have to have legal counsel on certain issues. And these are generally the categories that we are billed for, and we're working hard to reduce those categories that we can, but I just want to make the board aware that there are times we have to call in legal counsel. So here are the general categories of service: collective bargaining, grievances, appeals, significant personnel matters, legal opinions, town meeting preparation and town meeting article reviews. That also goes for any type of vote that may be going under referendums. Procurement issues, preparation and oversight of the documentation required for putting out RFPs and actually developing the legal contracts with whoever is the high bidder or the chosen bidder on an RFP. Litigation resulting from lawsuits that's probably our highest driver, are the litigation costs and the different types of litigation that we get. We get litigation resulting from lawsuits that are filed against the town and or its employees. There's litigation that comes from appeals filed as a result of regulatory board or commission action. And there's legal interpretations that we need on a fairly regular basis related to the charter, bylaws, or mass general laws. And I just want to make a note here that we've asked town council to categorize his bills by the categories that we're trying to present to you so you know exactly where the expenditures go. We will see an increase this coming year. We anticipate an increase in the charter, bylaws, or mass general laws because if you recall, we've been asked to do a complete revision and proposed revision of the bylaws. And that package is several inches thick. And while we did all the legwork ourselves internally with all of the department heads, and we've worked with the bylaw review committee, and they've done a great job, and Mark Moss has just been incredible, it still does need legal analysis. So we're tracking that separately, so you will see what the cost of that is. Another item that you will see a category of, and very little was in it this year because, again, it's less than 0.1%, so it's not going to show up on a chart, but that would be costs related to the middle school. Those are reimbursable, so we're tracking them carefully in a separate category so that when we're done with town council, expenditures related to the middle school will be able to get reimbursement from the middle school project. So here is a breakdown of town council expenditures in FY13. And we did this last year as well, and the chair had asked me to present this tonight so everyone else could see it, because it is in your packets, but it's good to have the public see where our expenditures are and what the report shows. So again, I'm happy to provide that report to anyone who'd like it. We'll make sure it's available on our website, and we'll include this as well. The town council expenditures, and again, these are general expenditures. Here are the categories that we've put everything into. Inspectional services, so when we say that, that primarily means questions related that have to go to town council related to zoning decisions, zoning interpretations, planning board, ZBA, if any of the regulatory boards need assistance, it would likely go under inspectional services. Town manager, general town administration, again, that's the assistance with RFPs, procurement, general questions. The Board of Selectmen, if the Board of Selectmen has specific issues that they'd like to raise, we've been categorizing it for you so you can follow and track what you're spending as well. Litigation, opinion, again, these are legal opinions. Sometimes we're asked a legal opinion by a board or a commission or the board, and whenever we have to ask for a legal opinion, that there is a cost, so we're putting that in that category. DPW, we didn't have anything in this category this year. Last year we had a couple because we had some RFPs. So that's why DPW is in there. Again, the charter, bylaws, and reorganization, those are general to those types of issues. Public safety, again, that would be police or fire if there was an issue for them. Miscellaneous would be, it doesn't necessarily fall neatly in any of these categories. And then you'll see there the school department. So what I want to bring your attention to is this chart is very similar to last year when you look at the breakdown of the costs. Almost identical on the percentage. The bulk of our costs are general town administration, town manager activity. That's the everyday activity that we have to have. The total cost of that for the year was $28,514, or 35%. The litigation is the piece that we really don't have a lot of control over. If someone or an entity files litigation or an appeal against the town, there is a cost to that. And we have to continue to fight that to protect the town. And that cost is similar. It's 33% this year. I think last year it was a similar percentage. And that represents $27,342. The other categories are fairly dispersed. As you can see, the charter bylaws reorganization, $8,500. You're starting to see the bylaw review process started actually back probably in April. So that makes up a chunk of that. Legal opinions, we have a lot of legal opinions. We have to interpret state law. We have to interpret regulations. We have to interpret attorney general decisions, as well as oftentimes boards and commissions, especially in the early stages of the charter revisions, ask questions about what were their roles, what were their responsibilities, and we had to get town council opinion on that so we could share it with those boards so they could properly complete their roles. If you take, so these are relatively self-explanatory. The board had asked in the past for a report on a specific expenditure related to some lawsuits, and the next slide is going to show you just in general, this is the pullout of the litigation. So if you look back, the purple slice, the 33% litigation, this is the area where the town really can't control it. We have to continue to defend ourselves against these lawsuits. So here is the breakdown of that. 90% of that cost this year were attributable to two or three different cases through Michael Robidoux that were reported to the board. I believe the last report was in March. So this covers the entire fiscal year. The March report covered the prior 2 years. 8% was a case called a Graham case. It was an MCAD case that was brought against the town, later dismissed. No finding. The town did not have to pay anything. The case was dismissed. And the other 2%, $529, makes up a number of different potential issues with the ATB, which is the Appellate Tax Board. Excuse me. Labor Council expenditures in FY13. Again, similar type breakdown, different categories. This is Myrick O'Connell, D. Moskis, and his team. So the categories are general matters. Again, this is labor, so these are things related to Labor Council as opposed to General Council. Negotiations, grievance, agency matters, and suits is the name of the category that we get from Myrick O'Connell. It is litigation. Special counsel, again, that is if we have to employ a specific type of counsel related to a specific case. It happened quite often. About 3 years ago there was a case. Last year there were none, and this year again there was about $1,100. And health insurance, this was a small piece, $718. It was some assistance that we had asked for with regard to review of the Health Insurance Reform Act and the town's implementation of it subsequently under Chapter 32B. If you look at this, this pie has changed. In the past, we saw that a lot of our Labor Council expenditures were taken up by litigation as well as negotiations. And we've seen a shift in this past fiscal year. As you can see, 82% of the total Labor Council expenditures, which again, I could go back, but it's probably in the $54,000 range total. So 82%, or $44,324, is due to litigation, which I'll show you in a minute. And again, that's litigation that the town has very little control over. The other categories, we've worked very hard to keep those costs down. This Labor Council expenditures this year were probably the most significant decrease that we had in our legal expenditures. And that's primarily due to the fact, and I can show you that in a couple minutes, that the Board of Selectmen had asked myself as town manager to participate in all of the negotiations wherever possible myself without town council, labor council. So those negotiations started back in February. We started meeting. So with all of our internal meetings, our actual negotiation sessions, we've saved approximately $39,000 in legal fees just for that 4-month period in FY13 because we're not bringing labor council to the table. I'm at the table with other department heads. And I want to make a note that these costs that the reductions are a result of all of the department heads. We have a great team, and the department heads recognize and understand the need to keep the legal costs down. And as a result, all of the department and division heads have been terrific as far as making sure, number one, checking with me before they go to legal counsel, discussing it, and making sure that it's really necessary before we go. And I just want to thank them because they've been so diligent about it, and it is showing. Now, if you take this piece of the pie, that's the 82% litigation. Just to break that down, 69% or $30,488 was one specific case that is still ongoing. Because it's ongoing, I won't give the details, but I will say it's an ongoing case. We've talked about it before, but it is public. It's been in public courts. It's been in Superior Court, and that is the Elaine case. The 31% or $13,000 are a combination of various personnel matters. Again, can't identify what the personnel matters are because they are personnel matters, but wanted to show you what those costs were. What explains the reduction in legal expenditures in general? Again, the collective bargaining. I've been at the table without legal counsel to date in any of the meetings. I've had to confer with legal counsel on a couple of rare occasions just to make sure that we had the appropriate documents in place on certain cases. We've been using a lot of the documents that were done a couple of years ago, updating them ourselves, and then running them by labor counsel only if necessary. So we're using a lot of boilerplate documents rather than paying to have them done all the time. And one of the major pieces here is not only are we negotiating internally with the department heads, but the town administration is conducting the financial analysis and research that previously used to be done by Myrick O'Connell. So we are doing all of the analysis of all of anything to do with the collective bargaining, with the comparisons, with the studies, with the legislation, with the impacts of everything. It's a lot of work, and it has saved us a lot of money. We're also handling, wherever we can, grievances prior to them going to arbitration. So we've been working hard with the department heads and division heads to settle any grievances that may be filed prior to them going on to arbitration where you actually need to hire labor counsel. We've been monitoring, controlling, again, the departmental use of legal counsel. And another major factor in the reduction in the labor counsel costs, particularly not town council but labor council, is the fact that we've now created and developed an in-house human resource function. And as a result, Myrick O'Connell used to provide the human resource services for the town. And now we do that internally. And that includes developing and revising our own personnel policies, updating the personnel policy manual, creating a discipline policy and action that's in writing so that everything is consistent and there are expectations that are clear with the employees so we don't have to constantly go back for legal analysis or legal opinion. And labor counsel is only contacted in circumstances where necessary to protect the town. And again, we will do that if need be. We will contact labor counsel, and as I mentioned, there'll be some cases coming up this year where we're going to have to. Particularly, we are in the process right now of negotiations with 11 municipal unions. And because of that, there will be contracts that need to be prepared as a result of the negotiations. And we'll do what we can in-house, but it will get to a certain point where we will have to have labor counsel step in. The last slide here is just last year the board had asked me to look at doing an analysis on whether we should have in-house legal counsel, and that included in-house town council and or in-house labor counsel. And we did a pretty large report on it, so I don't want to do that again because it was just done last year, but I just want to point out that that analysis was done last year. It was based on FY11 and FY12 costs from other communities. And basically what it showed is if we were to bring in-house the town council and labor council services that we're now contracting, it would be up to $384,986 annually because you would have salaries, you would have to have paralegals, you'd have to have clerical, even with a shared clerical position, we tried to do it so that, would it be more cost effective? And if you look at that figure of call it $385,000 annually to bring those services in-house. Our 5-year average for the total legal expenditures, and this includes a couple of years where the costs were very high for various reasons, our 5-year annual average is $215,000, well below $384,000. Our 3-year average, the last 3 years alone, just FY11, FY12, and the recently closed FY13, our average is $190,000, $769. And this year, our total legal expenditures for the year were $137,898. So clearly, it's a third of what we would spend to bring them in-house. So I would say based on this, based on the analysis that we'll continue to do annually, we should not be looking to bring services in-house as employees, but we should be staying with the contracted legal services. We're getting a great team from Attorney Hennigan, and we're getting a great team from Myrick O'Connell and Attorney DeMoscus. We're getting the specialty attorneys that we need when we need them without having to have them on the payroll. And as you can see, we as an administration have made strides in bringing down those costs. We've had huge decreases in legal fees. And again, we're going to see a little bit of an increase this year in certain categories, negotiations. We're going to have to see a little bit of an increase on town council side. We're going to see a bit of an increase on bylaw. But for the most part, we are doing everything we can to control those costs other than litigation, which we can't stop. So that's the report. Again, you have the rest of it in your packet with all the written material that supports this. So if you have any questions, I will go back up there. Thank you.
Any questions or comments? Mr. Holstrom first.
This is quite a report tonight, and it shows that you have quite a great organizational relationship with all your department heads, and commended for doing that. The town should be very, very thankful that we have that in place, that you've gone forward and done the work that has to be done, and still protecting the town at point. So thank you for the town, and thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Anything else? Mr. Simonian?
Yeah, based on where we were, not very long ago, it's definitely good news, and it's appreciated that we're doing what we can to keep that cost down, because it was, I hate to say out of control, but fairly close, if not.
Thank you.
And I'll just say that I know that you've been in contract negotiations daily for hours, and I'll just comment that even with that, nothing else has fallen through the cracks. That, calls are returned, emails are returned, and nothing else has been missed. So thank you for that. Anything else? Our next town manager item is the Executive Office of Elder Affairs. We have a vote to authorize and accept funds for a grant in the amount of $31,896 to support senior center programs, transportation, maintenance, equipment, office supplies, outreach assistant, and outreach worker.
Through the chair, this is our annual state formula grant. So it's fairly straightforward. We come in every year for this. It's due on August 30th. But it's formula-based, so that's the amount that we're getting.
If there are no questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to authorize and accept the funds in the amount of $31,896.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. And next we have the St. Vincent Community Healthcare Fund grant, and that is a grant in the amount of $1,200, no match required, for supplementing transportation so that seniors can receive reduced rides by the van for coming to the senior center, doctor appointments, and food shopping.
This is a competitive grant. We've been fortunate to have this, I believe, for the last 2 years, so we're applying for it again. And it allows us to reduce the cost of the transportation for residents in town to 50 cents for in-town rides on the van. It's a great program. We've been lucky to get that grant, and we'd like to hopefully get it again.
Okay. Anything further? Is there a motion?
Make a motion, we authorize and accept the grant funds of $1,200 from the St. Vincent Community Healthcare Fund grant.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. And manager items. You have something else?
I do. I just have one quick thing I just wanted to make a note of. Our fire chief, Steve Coleman, is actually speaking at a conference in Chicago tomorrow. So it's quite an honor that they asked him to speak on this. It is the Fire Rescue International Conference, which is the largest fire service educational conference in the country, and I'm sure Mr. Holstrom is aware of it. And he will be speaking and doing a presentation on public relations and customer service in fire departments.
Congratulations to Chief Coleman. We have no tabled items. Is there any additional public comment? Seeing none, we've addressed the minutes. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.
Thank you. Good night.